Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another episode of Pan the Organizer. Today, some cool things that you can do at home to improve your machine polisher's performance, right? So the first order of business will be, we're gonna change the grease inside these. So at least once a year, you should be doing some form of maintenance, but also note that what we're gonna be showing you today are things that you can do at home with simple tools and tricks that we're gonna be giving to improve the smoothness of operation, to make them quieter as well. And also the second portion is going to be to change the cord. If you have a faulty power cord, if it's not long enough, or perhaps you bought a lower entry level kind of polisher and you want a better power cord on there, we're going to show you just how simple all of this is to swap. Now, I'm going to leave links to all the tools, products, and equipment in the description under the video for you guys to check them out. So all you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Also, I have a special guest with me today that's going to help us understand how to do all this stuff and show us just how easy this is. And he's my friend, Yvan LaCroix from DIY Detail. Hi, Yvan.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the show.
Yes.
So you're more of the handy person, especially when it comes to like tools, and you invent a bunch of stuff as well. So I want you to show us basically how simple this is and also the benefits of doing what we'll be doing here today, which is we have two polishers overseas. So one corded version, this is the liquid elements, and we have a ShineMate polisher here. So my understanding is that these already come with grease from the factory, but not necessarily the right amount or the right quality.
Correct. Most polishers come with actually a relatively good grease, but they may be lacking a little on the amount and how they're putting the grease in. So we'll open it up and it's very simple.
Okay.
A lot of tools, they'll come with an Allen key in the kit. So just remove your backing plate. And if it's a corded tool or a battery tool, very important to do this.
Remove the battery.
Remove the battery or make sure it's unplugged.
Perfect.
Now, inside of here, we can see how they've built the counterweight assembly. Very good. We have 3 screws holding the counterweight. They have a very wide counterweight. And hear that little
there's a
ticking
little bit of
sound
play there. Yeah.
That's telling me that the grease probably isn't too good. So we'll start by removing the 4 screws. There's 4 screws on the bottom. And screwdriver, there we go. So we'll take 2 of them out.
So what do those screw hold?
So they're holding this shroud.
Okay, so this plastic piece there.
Right, but at the same time, they're actually holding the gear case together. And then we'll turn it. And you heard that little...
Yes,
okay,
kind of gears grinding.
That's actually not the gearing grinding. That is the motor turning. It's a permanent magnet motor.
Okay.
Or a brushless motor. And it's the magnets going, no, I don't want to move. I don't want to move.
Okay.
So that's what we're hearing. It sounds horrible, but it's not bad.
It's normal.
Yeah.
So you're using what kind of a screwdriver to remove those?
This is a number 2 Phillips.
Okay.
And then we'll just lift this up.
So the whole thing should come off?
The whole thing should come off. Just let me pop the screws out of here.
So 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have our 4 screws. And then we can see there's a bit of grease sticking out of here already. Not a big concern. Then we'll just use a flat blade screwdriver to pop this up. There we go. Okay, so
we see all the grease in there?
Yeah, so this bearing actually should have stayed in the bottom there.
Okay.
Oh no, they've done it differently. Okay, they've actually screwed the bearing on, so that's fine. Not a concern there.
Okay.
Now, notice how there's no grease around this gear at all.
Yes.
And other than the grease that I just put on it, there's no real grease there.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Not a great thing.
Okay.
Now, we can either change out this grease or just add to it.
Yep.
And in this case, we're just going to be adding to it. There's no need to change out this grease. It's a new machine.
Okay.
You haven't used it for 50 hours.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to, we'll just scrape it out and we'll show it on the corded tool. But like I said, there's no grease around here. Now, this machine, there's no space or very little space between here and the gear.
Yes.
So the gear is very tight to the bottom. a lot of tools, there's a gap here. And that's the gap we want to just add a little more grease to.
Okay.
And as the machine is turning, it heats up. And when it heats up, what we're doing is that grease becomes a little more liquid. And as it becomes liquid, it moves around and will get, closer to the gear case.
Got it.
But in this case, they've also provided a little seal here.
Yes.
Which is nice. These are well-built machines.
Good.
So, yeah.
And so what type of grease are we adding?
So we'll be adding a number 2 NLGI grease. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it. You can have a red bearing grease. So one that's popular is Lucas Red and Tacky.
Yep.
This is an equivalent of it, just in the Castrol brand.
Yep.
And if we look at it, it's...
Yes. Same as the Lucas CV2 as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're all the same idea.
Okay.
Lucas also makes a white lithium grease.
Yep.
Lithium has a little more, not lubrication, they're all lubricating, but just a different way of protecting as opposed to another type of grease, like the basic grease. And then the Super Lube, which is my favorite, it's a synthetic grease with Teflon in it, and Teflon in this case is a good thing.
Okay.
And you'll notice that this is very similar in its feel and look. It's not the same color.
Yep.
But basically, we're not trying to add too much grease. We're just filling in the holes where there was no grease, and that will be enough to quiet this machine down a little bit. Too much grease is not a good thing.
So for those who like to overpack there, that's not a good idea.
No.
Okay.
First of all, you're going to get leakage out of even though this has a seal, there will be leakage happening. The other aspect of having too much is now your machine is working against the grease. The grease should be there to help lubricate, should be there to help the machine do its job. It shouldn't be there to hinder it. Think of it as your engine. If you put too much oil in it, now your crankshaft is going around and having to go through that oil in order to turn. Whereas the way most engines are made is the crankshaft just barely skims the top of the oil.
Got it.
And this is what we're doing here. We want lubrication on the gear.
Yes.
And as you can see, there's not, this gear is almost dry.
Yeah.
So, which is not a good thing. Now, in this hole where the bearing was, we do not want to put any grease there because it'll be very difficult to put the bearing back in there.
Got it.
So let's put this back in.
So this is in the case, like we saw, it's a newer machine and there's enough grease in there. So we're just adding some higher quality stuff.
Exactly.
And making sure that all the metal parts are lubed. And we didn't see any metal shavings.
No.
So that's also a good sign.
You just want to make sure the gear is engaged.
Yep.
They don't have to get married, just engage.
And now you're screwing things back on.
Yeah.
So it's quite simple. So if you have those simple tools at home, and obviously if you want to remove the grease, we're going to show on probably the next one, if we need to remove anything, you can have a flathead screwdriver or something here like an air vent type brush.
Yep.
To remove the grease. You have, of course, a microfiber towel or a Scott towel, whatever you guys prefer. So once a year at least is recommended for regular maintenance, or if you have a new machine that might be of a less expensive price point and you want to just make sure first of all that you get the right amount of grease or a good quality grease in there. This is things you can do right out of the box.
Yeah, the grease that they use for most of these machines straight from the factory isn't actually that bad. A lot of people think it's a very bad grease because they're used to seeing the red stuff.
Yes.
There's no red dye in it. That's the only thing that's different.
Okay.
So these 3 greases are classed, NLGI number 2.
Yep.
Be it the white lithium grease, this one here, NLGI number 2.
Yes.
And this one as well is NLGI number 2. And that is telling us the thickness and lubrication properties of the grease.
So they're specifically made for metal gears type applications?
Gearing, in this case, the red, the tacky style greases, they're designed primarily for lubricating a chassis.
Okay.
So ball joints, drive shafts, things like that.
Yeah.
So on my tour bus, I have 138 greasing points that I have to go through. I go through 2 tubes every time I grease the chassis.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And so by adding that too, I think I noticed when you did that with Eddie, you guys had measured like the dB measurements of before and after, and it
Yep.
does help to improve 1 to 2 dBs, which to some people might not be a lot, but it's the pitch also, or the quality of the sound, should we say?
Yes.
That also can get improved. So you're not only adding lubrication and ensuring that there's no wear on your bearings and your moving parts, but also you're making it a bit quieter.
Right. Now, the one thing very important, don't tighten the screws too much. You want them tight, but you're screwing into aluminum. So you don't want to
Potentially
over
strip
torque
the
it. Yeah.
threads. Yeah.
And then when you're putting the backing plate back on, you'll notice there's 2 flats
Yes.
here,
Yes.
2 flats there.
Yep.
We need to line those up.
Are all machines made like that?
About 95%.
Okay.
Some of them use 3 screws to hold the backing plate on, or 4.
Yep.
But the ones with a central screw use some form of, flats to make sure it's there. You'll tighten it. You'll use the machine for about 15, 20 minutes, and
Okay.
you'll tighten it again
Okay.
because this may loosen off. And now we can
Just to show the operation.
plug it back in.
That definitely changes the sound.
Yeah.
Even see at the end there was kind of a metal on metal rubbing that we were hearing. And that's almost gone now. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a big difference.
Yeah.
So it's going to feel smoother. Not only that, but now at least we're ensuring that everything gets touched by the grease.
Right. Smoother, quieter,
Yes.
more fun to use.
And now a corded version.
Corded version.
So still dual action.
Yeah.
You can do this on rotary too, right?
Yeah, rotary. Every machine, your grinders, if you have grinders at home for working metal, same deal.
Okay.
Unplugged,
Yes.
and this one has a little Allen key built in.
Yes.
I highly suggest that you not leave this in the machine.
Because it can come loose.
It can come loose at
and
the
wreak
worst
havoc.
time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are concerned about a tool that's made in China. Okay?
Yeah, most are, right.
Right. In the background here, we have a really cheap Alibaba one that we'll show you.
Yes.
This is made in China. This is made in China. And one of the things with made in China is you can buy to a quality or you can buy to a price. Mm-hmm. The ShineMates, they actually have their own factory. So they build to a quality, they don't build to a price. Some others, like this one for, you can pick up for $70 or so.
Yeah, it's not because your things are made overseas that they necessarily are of bad quality. It's really how the person specs and how they pay for the options, and because everything can be done, right? You can spec it at a low price,
Yeah.
or spec it just how you want it to be.
Right. So just like the other one, we have 4 screws.
Yep.
Now, a few things that first impressions looking at this one, there's only 2 screws holding the counterweight on.
Yeah, we had 3 on the ShineMate, eh?
And this is, the counterweight is, the part that gets the most stress in all of this. The other thing is, there's a bit of play here. And that's not
Yep, we can
a
hear
good
that
thing.
and see that.
Yeah. So we'll investigate a little further. It might be an adjustment with the tool. We'll find out.
Okay. So the same principle from what I see is like the other. So you're removing the screws that holds the shroud, and then you have access to the gearings and bearings inside.
Correct. Yeah. They're all a similar design. Over time, if you find that your backing plate's a little wobbly,
Yep.
well, this one, we know why it's wobbly. This whole assembly is moving. But if we go back to the ShineMate, this was very tight.
Yes.
These bearings that are here, held in by these 3 screws, or in the ShineMate's case, held in by the counterweight, once you remove these screws, this pops out. You can change those bearings quite easily.
Okay.
And you can also buy a better quality bearing. So some companies will spec like an NSK bearing in there, which is a higher quality bearing.
Yep.
Some will use the off-the-shelf Chinese bearings, which are not necessarily as good. It's just depending what you want. When you're purchasing from China, it's whatever you want, they'll make for you.
Got it. And at the end, we're going to show your own DIY detail machines as well, because you have a rotary and a DA. And
Yep.
they're back in stock now because they sold pretty quickly, right?
They sold out the first time in 2 days, and we thought it would be like, you know, a couple months. So yeah.
they're also made in China, right?
They're made in China. They're
spec them.
engineered in the U.S. and Canada, depending on where I was at the time.
Yep.
So we'll pop this off.
Oh, and there we go.
So this one we have a little more grease in there. We can see there's some on the
gears.
The gears. There's some on the gear there. But if we look at the grease, there's unfortunately little metallic particles in there. So that's not a good thing. So there's little metal shavings all in there.
Yep.
That's really not a good thing. So this case, I'm going to take as much of this grease out as I can.
Okay.
We'll replace it with new grease, and hopefully those metal shavings just come from the assembly of the tool, etc. So this is something, since I've seen those metal shavings in there, I'm going to change the grease, and then we're going to come back to it after working, 8-10 hours, just to make sure there's not more metal shavings in there. If there are more metal shavings, then we have a problem.
Okay.
And we're going to use a disposable towel here, and we'll start with the large bladed screwdriver. And
They're just scooping up.
Yeah, scooping up, and yeah, you can definitely see a lot of metal shavings in there.
Focus on that. Yep, those little metal particles there.
Yeah, so
it's not as bad as I remember Eddie opening his as well, and he had a lot less of the grease, so maybe it's a unit to unit variance. But yeah, we still do see some.
Yeah. So not a good.
And how do you know if it's good grease or bad grease? Like in this case, is it at least some good quality grease?
Thickness is good.
Because they pride themselves on using something very different and highly engineered greases.
Honestly, from China, unless you send them the grease, it's sort of hard to tell. But
yeah,
in this case, no, it seems like a standard NLGI grease. So,
okay.
Which is what we want. Now that we've taken out the majority, or what we can with the large screwdriver.
So it doesn't have to be a work of art, right? To get it like perfectly squeaky clean?
Yes and no. In this case, I want to take as much of it out as possible because of those metal shavings.
Okay.
If you're just changing your grease and there's no metal shavings in it, then yeah, just, take the bulk of it out.
And just add on top of the old.
Just add on top. Now this grease on the bottom here is probably never seen. You probably haven't used this machine much by the looks of it.
No, it's new. I've used it maybe once or twice.
Okay, in that case, I'm not too concerned.
You got so many different polishers. There's a rack there.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other ones. We like to test different things. That's the way things work.
So we can see the probable source of the, let me just use this here, of the metal shavings, and that's right here.
Oh yeah. Let me focus in on that. We can see there's a bit of wear there already.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't used much.
Well, they're using the same gear case as they would on a rotary.
Okay.
And that's what these slots are for here.
Yep.
And again, we have metal shavings stuck in this gear.
Yes.
So that's probably where, this is too long from the factory, and it's rubbing against this.
Okay. So then it's more a design kind of thing.
Yeah. And honestly, there's no need for that button. It's underneath that casing. So like a rotary, you would sometimes have a button to lock the spindle.
Yep.
They've just carried over one from there. Now remember that looseness that we had?
Yes.
Okay, let's yeah, there's still a lot of play there.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is take these two screws off. This will allow us to take the shroud off, and we'll see exactly where that play is. It could be a bearing, it could be something else. But we know that the play isn't in this part of it. It's now, we know that it's centered in here.
Yep. So this is like doing a deep dive when you're doing some work on your engine.
Yeah. So this is the shaft that this is on was just unscrewed.
Oh.
Yeah, so from the factory it wasn't assembled properly. Because if we have this part here, now we basically have a rotary.
Yes.
That's the only difference there. The bearing that's here is something that over time can wear and can be changed. So the bearing that's inside of this casing here.
Yep.
So this little clip can come off. The gear will come off from there. And then you can push this shaft through and take the bearing out. So not a big concern. Inside of here, I don't know if you'll be able to get it, but there's another clip like this holding the bearing in.
Okay.
So once the shaft comes out of the bearing, the shaft goes down this way, then the bearing comes out the back end.
Got it.
But very simple to replace. So here we have a bit of play. So that means the tolerance on that shaft isn't perfect. So it could be the gear. Yeah, it's not in the bearing. So this gear is a little loose.
Okay.
Let's dig out as much of this as we can because of the metal shavings. Because metal shavings are never our friend.
So should this now prevent those from happening, or because a bit of the design concept, we'll have to go and monitor?
This will need to be monitored.
Okay.
So like I said, use it for 8 to 10 hours and then come back to it just to make sure that you have no more metal filings.
Yep.
If you're equipped to do so, you could actually take this pin and grind it down. So take it out, put it back in.
Okay.
And again, we don't want to get grease down into the bearing.
Yep.
So I'll use your fancy little vent Q-tips here.
Yep.
Bring out as much of that grease as I can. And again, we have more metal shavings.
Get a zoom on that. Yep, we can see those little metal particles there. So this can be live and learn for the brands who are potentially also watching the quality control, have a discussion with the factories that build them, because they have the capacity to do the job you want as long as you have your specifications.
Yeah, I've worked,
and your price point.
with Chinese tool manufacturers for decades, and you can have tools from China that are exceptionally well built because it's how you spec it is how they build it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some companies that go to China and say, I want a tool for $50.
Yeah.
There are other companies that go, I want a tool that does this, 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 and this. Now there's a little clump of grease there so there's a little wall under there that's stuck under that gear, so I just need to get that grease out of there, because again, we don't want any of those metal shavings remaining if we can at all avoid it.
Yeah.
Same here. So what I was mentioning before, this space here.
Yep.
So we have the space in here. So I'm going to start by filling that space. And that's going to give us a little reserve of grease that when you're polishing, it's going to work its way in, but without heavily packing. So we'll use the Lucas, the white lithium. And the reason I'm using this one is because of its color, if there are metal shavings, we'll see them even better.
So the contrast between the white.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything in that void
It's
before, eh?
completely dry. So you can see how it's getting into the bottom of the gear there.
Yep.
Just by going around. And the little remainder of grease that's there from the previous grease, since they're both classed NLGI number 2, they're compatible with each other.
Okay.
And then I'm going to fill from the bottom up. So these 4 cavities, make sure they're nice and full. So that's my first layer that's in there, and because of the pressure I can squeeze like a toothpaste, it gets in there a little deeper.
Okay.
And now I know that this gear is just above this gear.
Yes.
So I'm going to fill to that level. All the way around. And then fill in the center without getting any in that bearing, because again, we don't want, and put a little bit on the gear, and I missed a spot over here. There. So now we have as much grease as what was in there, plus the extra that we put on top of the gear.
Yep.
That will give us enough. Trying to pack it so that it's tight, again, not a good idea. So we can put this back on. Squeeze it down. Yeah. See how much play we've got in the gear?
Yeah.
So then the case back on, and make sure you have it facing the right direction, because
Yes.
it can go both ways.
Yeah.
And we'll put the counterweight on later.
So you're screwing the shroud back on.
Yeah. And I'm not going to tighten the screws. I'm just getting them in, and then I'll tighten it just like you would wheels.
So if you're doing this straight without any talking, filming, and all that kind of stuff, this is like a 5 to 10 minute job. It's not quite long. And from what I can tell, actually quite easy. So you have to remove the fear of opening things up, just like anything, and it's actually quite simple.
Yeah, it's not a difficult process in any way.
So you're tightening one on each corner first, kind of like you do with wheel nuts?
Yeah, exactly. Same idea, and I'm not tightening, I'm just putting them there,
Yeah.
so they're touching. Then I'll go around and tighten like I would wheel nuts.
If you guys have done this on your polishers, let us know in the comment section. And also if you've seen some that are catastrophic with maybe no grease from the factory or just a poor job, let us know which ones. I'm always curious, so people can have feedback as well, and hopefully brands to take lessons and improve what they're doing. I have a feeling with this polisher, it's going to make a big difference for smoothness and quietness of operation.
Well, the fact that the spindle was loose, that definitely will make a big difference. So now I'm going around and torquing them down. And before putting the counterweight on, we'll plug it in and just give it a little spin.
The other way, yeah.
Yeah. Unplug it again. Now before we put that counterweight on, we're actually going to take this piece off, so the front cover.
Okay.
And the reason I'm taking that off, remember that button that was hitting the gear?
Yes.
We're actually going to use that to tighten this down.
Okay. So it shows that they're pretty much all built with the same principle. Is this the first time you work on a liquid elements polisher?
Yeah.
And so you clearly know what you're doing and what parts you're working with.
Yeah. So this is the button that we have, and now when I rotate this, now I've locked the spindle.
Yes.
So this is the button that, if you're able to, you can, push it down. When the gear case is empty, take a Dremel or something, grind it down,
Okay.
and then put it back in. But in this case, we want to take this, and we can see, if we look through the hole, that the bearings are held in with a big Allen or Phillips head screw.
Yes.
So if you ever need to change the bearing, and this one only has one bearing by the look of it, A lot of them have 2 bearings that are stacked,
Okay.
but this one only has 1. It's as simple as removing these 3 screws, and this will
Pop up.
just pull out. And there's no play in there, so we're good. So I'm going to hold the button down,
Yep.
screw this in, till it clicks, and then I'm going to take a pair of pliers just to tighten it up a little bit more.
Yes. We got some here, I think.
Just to make sure that it's tight.
Absolutely.
Then we can put the counterweight back on.
It's like going to the doctor for a checkup or a tune-up.
Yeah, exactly. In the 80s, I worked in R&D for Porta Cable, so.
You've been around those tools for a while.
Yeah.
I actually learned to polish like decades ago with 7424 XP,
Yeah,
the classic Porter Cable. And it works fine, even though it's inexpensive. If you have proper control of your polisher, you can still get the job done. Are there more powerful ones? Yes, but at 5 to 6 times the price.
yeah. Now we can take this, put it back on. Slides on. Start the screws, all of them, before you tighten anything down. That way you're sure everything lines up the way it should be.
Right, time for the backing plate.
Right, so we have the standard, 2 flats.
Yes.
I like to put it in an angle that I remember, look at the backing plate, and make sure that it keys in.
There we go.
Once we know that it's keyed in, screw it on. Making sure that it's nice and tight. And then, like we said with the other one, after 20 minutes, an hour or whatever of polishing, come back, tighten it up.
And tighten it up. So let's connect it. Let's hear what it sounds like. As I clearly remember. Yeah, absolutely. Feels less loud, but also much smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
While we're here, another point of maintenance is brushes. And this is something that every tool that you buy generally will come with an extra set of brushes
Okay.
that people lose over time. You want to keep them in a nice safe spot to make sure you don't lose them.
So the ShineMate over there, the cordless, that was brushless.
This is
and
brushless,
this
yeah.
is with brushes.
But most corded tools are still with brushes. So just take that screw off. Let me ungrease the screwdriver here. Pop this up.
So it's just like a little door.
Yeah. And then if you want to change this brush, it's taking a small screwdriver like this, moving the spring off to the side, and now the brush lifts out.
Oh, look at that.
And you can unplug it from here.
Yes.
So it just plugs in there.
Very easy.
Yeah.
So that's all you have to do. So if you have worn brushes or it's time to change them, boom, you can do it. You can do all of this yourself, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things with the brush like this is there are 2 reasons why a tool will cut out over time.
Okay.
So you'll be working on it and the brush or the tool just stops, and then you tilt it another way, it starts working again. It's normally the cord, but it can be the brushes that either have come to the end of their life cycle, or this little cord that's attached to the brush is being caught up on something.
Okay. So pop the door back, put the screw, and that's it.
Yep.
Super easy maintenance. Awesome.
And then in the case of this one, if we want to take a look inside, so other things like we mentioned, the switch or the cord can be changed, but also the switch can be changed.
Okay.
And it's very, very simple to do. So even though most of these companies have a warranty, you may not need the warranty in the sense of have them send you the part. You can easily diagnose what the problem is.
Yep.
And have them send you the part instead of you shipping the machine out to the company and back and losing
big costs.
Yeah,
And
losing the
downtime.
machine. Yeah, exactly.
And by switch, do you mean the trigger itself?
Yeah, the trigger itself. Now, the 2 screws at this end are longer, so we just have to remember that. And you won't be able to put them in the other place anyways, so not a big deal. And in the case of this machine, we need to take the brush door off in order to get that.
And look at that.
Yeah, so the switch just pops out. There's 4 screws on the bottom.
Yep.
Change those screws, or release the screws, put the switch back in, and off you go.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So it's actually a lot simpler than we might think when you're looking at how polishers are designed on the internals.
Exactly.
It's not super complicated.
No. Now, the cord management in here is okay, but this cord, there's nothing telling it where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So just be very careful when reassembling that the cord is, like here it can actually rub against this over time.
Yeah.
So we just want to get it down in there a little further. And then take a look on the other matching side to make sure that there's nothing hindering it
Yes.
and nothing that's going to squeeze it down. And there isn't in this case, so we can put this back together. Same here. So actually, these 2 holes are actually for this cord to go through. So I don't know why they didn't put it through there.
Use it, yeah.
Yeah, so let's fix this. Put it where it should be. Now it's much safer in terms of when we're putting this back together.
Yes.
The
They
cord.
have a route where they should be.
Yeah, so everything in its place.
Good.
I know a guy that's very well organized and
Yes.
probably likes that.
I'm happy now.
Yeah.
Now I know what was there before, and this is better.
And if we need to change
well.
the cord, simple as removing those 2 screws, removing these 2 screws here,
Yes.
we can change the cord. The strain relief on this one is just sitting in here,
Yep.
so not a big deal.
Okay.
And before screwing anything down, you make sure that the whole thing can be clamped down by hand,
Yes.
because the screw gives you a lot more force. In giving you that force, it can squeeze a wire inadvertently,
Got it.
which we don't want to do. And again, I'm not going to tighten these down. I'm just getting them all in their place. And then just like torquing a cylinder head, I'm going to start in the center and work my way out rotationally.
So you can, if you take your time, you can't really get things wrong here. There are really no worries to be had. And you're going to familiarize yourself also with your tool, because when it is time to do maintenance, if you've done this, the more times you do it, the more comfortable you feel.
Yeah. Now, some tools are a little more complicated. Some are easier. Some, the wire management, and we'll open up the really cheap one there. Some of them, the wire management is horrendous.
Okay.
And trying to get it back together without squeezing any wires can be a little onerous. So now that I have them all snug, I'm just going to go around and tighten them. Like I said, like a cylinder head on a car. And we're screwing into plastic, so there's no need to
Over torque.
over torque.
So what do you guys think? By the way, drop a comment. Is it something that you now feel comfortable to do? You saw how simple this was and how very little tools, parts, and equipment you need, and there you go, full health check.
And just make sure that everything still works.
Oh yeah, she does sound a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. You know, if we look at that one, we look at the let's just say the Alibaba special here.
Yes.
So that was on speed 3. Let's put this on speed 3.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Slight difference.
How much would that cost, this one?
This was like $60.
60 bucks, all right.
US, about
So you get what you
$80
pay for.
Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this one, the handle is split top and bottom as opposed to left to right,
Okay.
which is often preferable just in terms of wire management. and it allows you to place the switch and everything more easily.
Okay.
So this one has a separate trigger to the switch.
Okay.
And they actually did this backwards. So it goes to show you the quality or lack thereof.
Yeah.
This should have been
Yes.
in the bottom.
Yes.
The wires, there's nothing, there's this wire that's being held in, but all the other ones are just sort of hanging around.
Super loose, yeah.
Yeah. And then this trigger goes here, in there,
Yep.
and this end goes into this spring.
Mm-hmm.
So getting this all back together is going to be a little more challenging.
Yeah, we can immediately tell this is a lesser quality. Even the trigger itself
Yeah.
feels like a 2-penny kind of part.
And then we just tighten the screws. And you'll notice this one just has 4 screws holding the handle together as
Yes.
opposed to 6 or 7 or
Yep.
8.
Yep.
So now this one actually came with a relatively good cord. But if you wanted to, it's very easy to remove the cord, shorten it,
Yes.
lengthen it
Yes.
by getting another cord if you want to.
Or if yours is cracked or damaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we saw how easy that was to access. So while you're doing that, speaking of quality tools, I know DIY Detail, you guys released your own dual action and rotary. So let me get these because I want Yvan to explain them to us. And you spec them to your desires.
Yep.
So if you can briefly go over them.
So as we mentioned, cord management is something that's important. Access to the brushes. So if you look at the cheap Chinese one, there's actually no access to the brushes whatsoever.
Yes.
So to get to them, you have to take the handle apart, both halves. Now you're really playing with fire.
Absolutely. So that's the dual action.
Yeah.
This one here is a 25 millimeter.
Yes.
Why 25? I know that's a question a lot of people have probably for you, right? We're so used to seeing 8, 12, 15, the classics, and 21 for the larger strokes.
Yeah. So the longer the stroke, the better the cut.
Yes.
And the more the cut. And in the DIY system, we use the rotary to finish and the DA to cut, which I know is backwards for some people. For me, it's always been that way. But anyways, so it's just the longer the stroke, the better. It actually makes for a smoother machine.
Okay.
And because of the weight of the counter rotating assembly, it's a lot more massive than a 21.
Yeah.
And that eliminates stalling. So like we saw in the other one, the brush is the same sort of idea.
Yes.
So we can just move the brush over to the side. This one of the things that I had changed was to put actually this clip a little higher, because the other one, it was down lower.
Yes.
And they put a sleeve on this cord, and by putting a sleeve on that cord, it stiffens it a little bit, and that cord can eventually hit against this, so the clip, meaning that the brush can't go down all the way.
Got it.
Whereas this, we've simplified it. We just use a top mount instead of a bottom mount for the wire.
Yes.
And getting that. This is the fun part.
So that's kind of a retaining clip, let's say.
This is the spring.
Okay.
So it's like a clock spring.
Yes.
So we've removed the brush holder. We have one of our screws hiding beneath the brush holder.
And this one here, you have a rotary polisher as well.
Yeah.
They both come with what I like is 5-inch and 6-inch backing plates.
Correct.
So depending on what pad size you guys are used to, or just whatever backing plate you want, you can use the one you prefer. So they come in the box like that. That's very smart.
Yeah, they come built that way. Because of the 25 millimeter counter rotating assembly, and we have, actually this is an exclusive for the folks at Pan the Organizer.
Oh.
But we will have a 15 and a 21 coming shortly,
Okay.
just from customer demand. So,
Yes.
but still we're going with a heavier counter rotating assembly, keeping in tune with this, that we end up with less chance of stalling.
Got it.
So if we look at the cord management in this,
Much prettier.
every cord has its place, it's held in, there's nothing that can move.
Exactly. Even here we can tell the white and the black, they all have their own routing there.
Correct.
Yep.
And our strain relief, we allow it to swivel.
Yes, I like that.
That way you have less strain on your cord. It's supposed to relieve the strain, not add additional strain.
Absolutely.
So by having that, that's what we've done there.
So that's a look at the internals. Wow.
Yeah. So very simple.
Yeah, super easy maintenance.
And you can, by removing this, unlike the Chinese one, or they're all Chinese, but the cheap one, this was screwed to this piece,
Yes.
made it difficult.
Absolutely.
Whereas this is all one piece. Changing the cord, once again, very easy. You have your screws on the other side, and then putting your wires back in where they belong is easy. There's a place for every wire,
Yes.
and every wire in its place.
So there's a lot of thought in this assembly and creation of the polisher.
It's little things like that that make your tool more durable, easier to service, easier to maintain. Just makes life better in the long run.
So the only thing, for me, the only con so far, because the quality is amazing, the price is very, very good. The assembly, as we've seen, is very good. It's the color. Ivan, what's up with the yellow? I know my friend Jason from Chicago Auto Pros
Detest it, yeah.
Car Supplies Warehouse, yeah.
Yeah, it's our polishing system is called the gold standard polishing system. And yes, our corporate colors are red and black, but there are so many tools on the market that are red and black that we decided to go with the gold.
So you wanted something different. I think you achieved that.
Yeah, we wanted something that stood out a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm personally not a great fan of the yellow either.
Okay.
In the sense of, it wouldn't have been my first choice.
No.
But because of the name of our polishing system.
It makes sense now. Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And in videos, I mean, if people use these, clearly we're going to know which brand this is.
Oh, definitely.
No, I don't think I've seen another yellow polisher.
Well, there's DeWalt.
Yes. Yeah, from the tool brand.
Yeah.
But in the detailing space, you're the only ones. So these were back ordered. They were very popular, but now they're back in stock.
Yeah, they're back.
Both the rotary and the DA.
They're back in stock, and we also have machines on the way to Australia, to Europe, and to the UK.
That's very good.
And mentioning the counter-rotating assembly, let's just take a quick look.
What can you tell us while you're removing that about the rotary? What do you like about yours specifically?
So we have a double gearing system. So as opposed to just one gear, like most, we have double gears.
Okay.
So we can see how much more massive this counter-rotating assembly is.
Yes.
The other thing is we have NSK bearings, so a higher quality bearing as opposed to the Chinese bearings.
Absolutely.
This is a lot higher because we have double stacked bearing in there.
Okay. Yep.
So little things like that.
Yeah. Well, the little details can make a big difference.
They do. And then our backing plate has vent holes in the back as well. So it's drawing air in, out, cooling the bearing, cooling everything. And because of the centrifugal force, it's pulling the air from here and expelling it out these holes.
Yes.
And at the same time, drawing air from the pad and out those holes. So we're using centrifugal force to our advantage.
Because the cooler everything is when you're polishing, the better. It's heat buildup that we hate for the paint and for the machine, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, little details again, but we have a star washer in here to keep it from...
Oh yeah, look at that.
To keep it from backing out.
Yes. So as it's rotating, it prevents the screw from inadvertently perhaps loosening and popping off. So even though the chances of that happening are small, why not completely remove those chances? It's very smart.
That pops in.
And what are the price points for the two polishers?
$299 for the DA, USD.
USD.
And $249 for the rotary.
So this is like mid-tier pricing, but high quality machines. I always like to see that. Underpriced, overperforming. And these are by no means competitors to the cheap machines, but rather I think you had in mind to have something value oriented that would give you very strong performance.
Yeah. And then for the rotary, let's take the backing plate off. you're asking what was different about ours,
Yeah.
is very much the gearing at the front here.
So you were saying it's dual gear?
Yeah. So like when we opened up that DA, there was that single gear driving that shaft.
Yep.
And when you have that, that's basically how most rotaries are. They have a single gear. We actually have a 25-to-1 gear reduction as opposed to about a 10-to-1, meaning that the electric motor is actually spinning faster than it needs to. But the reason we have it spinning faster is for better cooling.
Okay. And you like to use it on speed number 1, right?
If it were up to me, it would just have a 2-speed switch.
Yes.
1 and full speed for pad cleaning.
Absolutely.
So most rotaries, you have the shaft here attached to the gear, and the spindle would be coming out here.
Yep.
But our spindle is coming out just a little further away.
Yes. Yeah, you can tell all the thoughtfulness made around how this is constructed, like all these screws holding things. You can tell it's a well-made machine.
Now the other point that we can see here now is the fan itself.
Yes.
How close they are together.
Yes, the
But
fins, yeah.
Yeah, but they're also spiraled. So we get better airflow because of that.
Okay.
They're not just straight.
Okay. So you had a lot of say in the creation of these tools. It's not just letting the manufacturer do whatever they wanted, right?
No.
Yeah. Ivan never puts out things that he's not proud of.
And yes, it took a little more time, took a little more engineering and back and forth.
But I think us enthusiasts would like to see that.
Yeah.
So this basically is a professional level tool, meaning pros can use it all day, every day for heavy duty, but enthusiasts can buy this and know they'll have one polisher for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and that's how it's designed.
I'm sure many have asked you, why not a wireless or cordless polisher? Why are you guys all corded?
We're working on the cordless.
Okay.
There's something that I don't like about the cordless, and that is the weight and the balance.
Okay.
So we're working on the weight and the balance.
Very interesting.
So we have the first gear here.
Look at that.
So this one, let me get the grease out of the way here. So this gear is actually above the spindle up here.
Yes.
Instead of down there.
Yes.
And when we turn this, it turns the spindle.
Yep.
Then this gear moves this gear that then moves your spindle.
Aha.
So that gives us the gear reduction that we need.
Yes. Seems like to me, because I'm not a mechanic by any means, but a system like you'd have on a bike, changing gears kind of thing.
Yes.
Taller ratios, shorter ratios.
Well, by having the 25-to-1 gear reduction, it gives us a much, like I said, a faster moving motor.
Yeah.
The faster moving motor gives you more torque. It's a little louder because of that air movement, but at the same time, it stays cool. Mm-hmm. We're not overheating everything because an electric motor that is asked to go very slowly creates a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And we modified the fan to that spiral fan in order to move more air as well.
Got it.
And then the way the shroud is made at the front, instead of expelling the air all out the side, we're expelling air through here, over the gear case to cool it off.
Yes. I like that when we see the internals, because beyond the plastic shrouds that protect the machine, when you look at the high quality metal that's there and how beefy it is, it's nice to see that you're getting a lot for your money. It's very comforting knowing that you're getting something that's well built.
That's the whole idea. Provide value, provide quality. And no one wants to be buying a tool every year, although it's fun.
Yeah, getting new stuff is always cool, but
Yeah, if I look at your shelf over there, you're getting new tools on a regular basis.
but this is a detailing channel, right? So I know a lot of my viewers, they're more budget conscious and they want to make sure that they get something that's durable, because they're not going to be buying 6, 7, 8, 10. It
No.
doesn't make any point to have all those polishers. There's no sense in that.
No. When I had my shop, every employee had 3 polishers.
Well,
That was always plugged in. We never changed pads.
yeah.
Torque them down, and then.
So we got to see the inner workings.
So again, the fan has no way of expelling air here.
Yep.
But it expels through these slots,
Fins, yep.
sending the air over the
assembly
and out through here. So we can see how the airflow is forced out.
Very smart.
And then
that's the beauty of being, like, you've been in the industry for over 4 decades. So when you've had so many machines, been on the R&D for a lot of them too, and it's time for you to produce your own stuff, well, you know what you need to improve, you know what can be better, you know where to focus your energy on.
And also, what doesn't need to be changed.
Yeah.
So there's if
it's not broken, don't fix it.
No. There's a lot of tools out there that are great tools that they're just missing a little refinement here and there.
Yep.
An example, we look at the cheap tool there, the bearings in it are just horrendously low quality.
Yes.
Just taking that machine apart, changing the bearings would change everything on that machine.
Absolutely.
And you're looking at maybe $40 worth of bearings.
Yes. And one thing that we did notice too, because we spoke about it at the beginning of the video for the other ones, but yours were properly greased. It was the right amount. The grease was touching all the gears. So yours, at least from the factory they came, you don't need to do anything right away.
No, exactly.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Yvan.
Thank you.
Guys, again, all the links to the tools, products, and equipment in the description under the video. We hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks. If it can help anybody that you know out there to learn more, of course, share the video. Click the subscribe button to learn more about car detailing, all the products, tools, and equipment, and the tips and the tricks. In the meantime, guys, don't forget, keep it tight, keep it clean, and Yvan will see you on the next one.